Okay, so I'm trying something new out here, which is just to give you a really quick thought on a very simple tool or tip that you can use to improve your song in the next 5 minutes. So I'm just kind of sitting here at my desk. I've got my computer in front of me, and as I was sitting here working, I was reviewing some notes and reviewing some songs, and I was like, you know, there is this very simple thing that people can do with their lyrics, particularly, that if you do this thing, your lyrics can go from good to great in about 3 minutes, if you know what that thing is. And the tip here is to upgrade your verbs. So verbs are the powerhouse of the English language, and a good verb can do everything that an adjective and an adverb does. And I want to give you a quick example of that. Okay, so let me just look at my notes here. I've got a little Word doc in front of me here. You can't see it, but I can. So let's say you had a lyric, these 2 lines, and that lyric is, I took your hand in mine and brought it gently to my chest. So here's the first thing to do. The first thing is to underline the verbs in those 2 lines. So there are 2 verbs. I took your hand in mine. I took. Took is the first verb. Now, let's just focus on that one line. I took your hand in mine. Okay, there's a nice image there, but how can you upgrade that verb? Is there a verb that you can find that tells us something more about imagery, about relationship, about sensory experience, about mood, right? Let's imagine for a moment that instead of saying, I took your hand in mine, I said, I curled your hand in mine. So curled is so much better, right? It tells me something really visual and really sensory. Now I see 2 hands doing this, just not this, right? Or I cradled your hand in mine, right? Now I see this, I see gentleness, I see tenderness. There's so much that the word cradle does that took does not do. Let's look at the second line, and brought it gently to my chest. Now there were 2 problems with that line. One is the verb, right? So brought it. Now it's not necessarily a problem, but there's always that question of, is there something I can replace that with, basically, that's going to do a better job, that's going to be less bland, less grey? Is there some verb that's going to do all this stuff that a verb like curled or cradled has the capacity to do? The second problem with this line is the adverb, and there are much better writers than me that we can learn from, and so many writers have given the same advice over and over again, which is that adjectives and adverbs are the weakest part of the English language, and in all ways, wherever you can cut them out of your writing, the writing tends to be stronger, right? So gently is an adverb, and you know, is there some kind of verb that I can pick that's actually going to give me the gentleness, that's going to show me the gentle action through the choice of the verb, instead of needing to use the adverb there, which is kind of this like ornamental and ultimately kind of diluting force in the lyric. So instead of brought it gently to my chest, what if it was and sailed it gently to my chest, or breathed it gently to my chest, or any number of other verbs that give me some kind of imagery, and in that image give me a sense of the motion, give me a sense of the emotion, and give me a sense of the mood, or some imagery that actually shows the action, rather than needing to use weak language like adverbs. Okay, so upgrade your verbs is the tip here. So underline all the verbs in your lyric and see if there are, 50% of those verbs that you can swap out for something more interesting, right? And then the second tip here is, at any possible moment, cut out adjectives and adverbs. Okay, let me give you one more example. So I wrote a little line here that said, the swollen moon rose in the dusky night sky. Okay, so swollen moon rose. Now the question is there a verb that I can use instead of rose that is actually going to give me swollen? And it turns out that there is. It's the verb to swell. So what if instead of the swollen moon rose, I just said the moon swelled in the night sky? And again, you can see that I've cut out the adjective dusky, because what does dusky do? Dusky doesn't do anything. The night is the night, right? So the moon swelled in the night sky is a lot more powerful and concise, and it's powerful through its conciseness, right? That it conveys so much more emotion, packs so much more punch for how much more intense it is in its brevity and in its economy of language. It actually reminds me a lot of a couple of things that Jeff Tweedy wrote in his lovely book, How to Write One Song. He gives this great example where he says, you know, in one's attempt to be poetic with language, you could be tempted to write something like, an impatient red fiery orb loomed in the whiskey-blurred cottony blue sky. But he says, that is rarely going to hit me anywhere near as hard as, I was drunk in the day. Right? That the economy of that language packs so much more power than really ornamental, decorative language that just goes on and on. The other thing that he says relating to adverbs, and again, it's kind of like too much language when just the verb itself will do. He says, you know, if you say something like the dog barked loudly, well, the adverb loudly there actually weakens the expression, because when you say the dog barked, we assume that it's loud, you know, so the verb actually contains all the imagery we need. It's just a little flag, right? It's a little thing there to say, check in on your adverbs, check in on your adjectives, and if it's possible to cut them out, and instead upgrade your verbs. All right, that's it from me. See you later.